everyone, it's Tanya Games here. Welcome back to the channel. We're back with another speed build. This is in the Beanstalk Marshes of Storybook Vale, and this build is the Witch's Road, obviously inspired by Agatha all along, and this build was requested by Chill Chaos, so credits Chill for the idea to do this build, because otherwise I don't think I would have done it. I decided to use the Beanstalk Marshes because I felt it was like such a large space to do it in. I think the Beanstalk Marshes is the biggest area in Storybook Vale, so it made sense for me to do it there. I did debate about doing it in the Forgotten Lands, which I thought would have been quite fun to do, but I decided to actually use the Beanstalk Marshes and sort of not be limited by any ponds and things like that, so that's why I chose to do it here. Now, I did choose the houses initially before even going into this speed build because I did have a lot of back and forth about what I wanted to actually use for the different areas. So there are different homes that they sort of go to for the trials in the show. And the first home they go to is a very modern style house, but it's in this like sandy, deserty landscape. So I ended up going with Charlotte LaBeouf's home just because it had that grand kind of large look and appearance. But I liked the yellow tone of it, and I thought that would blend in as well with the kind of landscaping. I did use still quite a lot of trees because I wanted each house to almost feel like a mystery to come across, and I didn't want to see all the different buildings like from each point, so I did enclose in a lot of spaces. So I do use the yellow and orangey kind of landscaping around Charlotte LaBeouf's house. For the next house I use the Wandering Moon skin. That's one that we got within the Mulan update. I wanted to replicate the shape of the second house that we see in the Witches Trials along the Witches Road, and it had this gorgeous structural like triangular roof that I really wanted to replicate, and I was like, that looks so cool. And I was looking through the buildings and I felt the only one that had a similar kind of angular shape was the Wandering Moon house skin, so that's why I chose to go for that one. We then move on to the third building as well, which I used the Bayou cottage for. Now, I don't get a very good glimpse of this house in the show. It does look like kind of like a rundown wooden structure kind of thing. So I felt like the Bayou cottage best represented that. I did debate for a while the camping house, but I just felt it looked too clean, and I like the kind of almost dilapidated and rundown look of the Bayou cottage, so that's why I went for that. When I do decorate that area, I do use a lot of dark tone trees, just like with the Wandering Moon building. I use the kind of dark trees there to replicate the visual look of those areas. And then we go into our fourth house, which I use the castle for, the scary spooky castle. I forget what the name of the house skin is, but I use that because I wanted to create a castle like structure. I did debate using Lady Tremaine's house because I felt the colours of Lady Tremaine's house were better, but Lady Tremaine's house just didn't have that grand castle-like feel. If Lady Tremaine's house was bigger, that's what I would have used. So in the end I used this scary castle, spooky castle instead. And when I do the decor around that, I try and use again quite barren, dilapidated kind of trees, you know, without leaves and stuff, and I try to lean into some yellow and orangey tones because again, when you see that area, it is very yellowy and orangey, so I wanted to kind of have nods to that. Then we come to our last house, and I was in two minds about what I should do here, because there is a trial that they end up in, and it's a very modern, very clean looking sort of underground bunker almost vibes. You know, when they come out in those like body bags. I don't want to spoil too much of the show if you haven't seen it yet, but that's what they kind of come out of, and it's a very modern looking building. So I debated about putting in something modern looking, but then I realized we never see the exterior for that. So I was a bit like, okay, what do I do then? What do I do? Because you just don't see that aspect of the trial. So towards the end though, after they come out of the modern kind of space, this kind of almost like mortuary kind of vibe building, we actually come out at Agatha's house that she's kind of lived her life in, or her past few years in. And so I was kind of like, okay, well, why not do that instead? Because we do see the exterior of that. Now, the exterior of that, again, is kind of like your typical, I want to say typical American home. That was the vibes it gave me. I didn't have anything that I thought would replicate that very well, apart from the snowy house, but I didn't want to include the snow. So I ended up using Lady's house, although I feel Lady's house is more maybe almost Victorian British vibes. I felt like it would work as a replacement. It still has that kind of like nice house feel kind of thing, something more, I don't want to say normal, but obviously like things like a castle isn't something that an everyday person lives in. So that's what I kind of mean when I say normal, but yeah, just more like a normal home kind of vibe. So that's a brief rundown of sort of how I set up and structured the main sort of structure of the road. Now, you'll have seen whilst I've been talking, I spent an awful lot of time placing the plumeria path. Now, I originally didn't necessarily want to use the plumeria path as such, because it is quite bright, but when they're walking down the path, it is covered in leaves and things like that. So I really wanted to kind of replicate that leaf and overgrown, almost like design. So that's why I went with the plumeria path to line it initially. And then I start underlying that because I realise that's very bright and stuff like that. With, originally I go with the leaf strewn path, but I think in the end I settle on the sunlit plateau kind of sandy mud path that you can get. I forget what it's called off the top of my head, but I end up changing to that path because I felt like it just had a nicer tone and colour to it, especially in contrast with the plumeria path. But I think either of those paths work really well. I certainly like the idea of the leaf strewn path because of the fact that it did look a bit leafy in a sense. So that's something that I did want to do. Now, I would say that this part took up the most time to do, was doing the actual pathing in terms of creating this build. So I did speed up this footage quite a lot. I hope it's not too jarring for everyone watching. I'm hoping that because like I stay in similar angles for quite a long period of time when placing things, that it's not too nauseating. But I didn't want to have this video be effectively 2 hours long. I knew that would be probably a bit too long for anyone to sit and watch. I know sort of when I look at my watch time for things, and you know, you can see the analytics of how long people usually watch a video through for. I know if I do a 2-hour video, people aren't sitting through it. So I did kind of speed that up massively. just to make things a bit easier. And then through the rest of the design process, it is a little bit sped up, but not to the same level of speed. So it does look more like real time in a sense. So yeah, just kind of letting you know, placing that pathway did take an awful long time. And now I come to decorating essentially these areas. Like I said, because I kind of wanted each area to feel like its own space, that's why I used a lot of these larger trees and things like that, because I felt they would work better for enclosing each house kind of thing. But realistically, I think, you know, I wouldn't necessarily use these thick luscious trees throughout the build otherwise, because when they're going down the road, a lot of the trees are bare. They're just bare. There's no leaves on them. So in some ways they're not as film accurate, but I just think these create more of a vibe, which I was hoping to go for. You'll have to let me know what you think of how I've set this up. If you'd have done anything differently if you were creating this build, like if you were going to use different houses or different foliage, you'll have to let me know. I'd be really intrigued to see how you would all do it. I also think this kind of, even if someone doesn't directly want to do a Witch's Road inspired build, I think this would be quite cool for anyone who's thinking about doing like a magical forest, like not necessarily a like fairy bright light forest, but if anyone's wanting to do like a dark mysterious forest, a scary forest vibe, I think you could certainly be inspired by some of the choices I make here. Now I will say as well, because this is inspired by the Witch's Road, I don't really do any decorating in terms of actual decor. This is all foliage. The entire build is just foliage pieces and houses, and obviously the pathing. So there's no requirements here to actually own certain items. It can be very easily replicated. Whilst I do typically use a lot of the Storybook Vale trees, you'll see that I do use some other trees in between, some like base game trees or the Rift in Time, Eternity Isle trees. So you can definitely kind of replicate this build if you just have the base game and you wanted to do something like this in the Forgotten Lands. You could do something very similar using some of the trees that we just have in the base game as well. So it should be easily to construct no matter what kind of DLCs you have. I do also, towards the end of the video, line the path with several candles. I just wanted there to be a bit of light if I was exploring this area at night time, and I felt like the melted candles made the most sense for what to include design wise and things like that. So that's what I decided to go with in the end. But that's the majority of what I do. Everything else I place is literally foliage. So I'm gonna leave you with the rest of this video to enjoy. Just enjoy the process, see what trees I put down. Like I said, hopefully it's not too fast and you can kind of gauge what I'm using to decorate with. If you've got any questions, obviously leave them in the comments down below. If you have any other builds you'd like me to do, design or anything like that, leave a comment down below. I'm always happy to do builds that are requested, so feel free to leave a comment and a suggestion down below. I do also want to do a big shout out to my channel members. Thank you for your support, it means the absolute world to me. And thank you to anyone who is subscribed to the channel, anyone that likes, comments and watches my videos. I do appreciate your support as well. We do have a walkthrough at the end of this video. We have a sort of sunset-y daytime walkthrough as well as a nighttime walkthrough, so make sure to stick around for that just so you can see how it looks in game, because I feel like visually it looks very different when you're on a lower level, like seeing it from your player's perspective compared to the overview views that you're gonna see whilst I decorate. So I definitely recommend sticking around for that, and I do hope that you enjoy watching the walkthrough, and I hope you also enjoy watching the speed build. But I'm gonna leave this video here. Do enjoy it, do give it a thumbs up if you like it, and if you want to see me do any other builds, make sure to leave suggestions down below so I can make an attempt at those. But I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll be sure to see you all in the next one. Bye guys.